Welcome back to Arms Room Radio. We are coming to you live from the Mobile Kel-Tec studio at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Tampa, Florida. Gentlemen, how's everybody doing? Everybody doing okay?
Good.
Wonderful.
Good.
Wonderful.
Good.
We're going to get some PT in and do a little push-ups, little sit-ups while we're there.
Little mountain climbers.
Yeah, dude, the Iron Mike. The Iron Mike. We got to stay awake.
Swam some laps.
Got to stay awake. We talked about that, Kevin. They put up a sign out there, so we can't go back out to the pool.
No orcas.
We're joined by our next guest. I gave you a little sneak preview earlier what we were going to be talking about. We've got a whole bunch of topics to talk to him about with us. Mr. Craig DeLuz. Craig is the Director of Public and Legislative Affairs for the Firearms Policy Coalition out of all places, get this, California. So it's an uphill battle for this gentleman. Craig, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here.
What could you tell us about the Firearms Policy Coalition? We've talked about California before. We've obviously talked about California issues, but I don't think we've ever had the pleasure of having somebody that's been so involved in California as you.
Well, the Firearms Policy Coalition is a relatively new organization. Started about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was really started by a few guys who wanted to create the sort of gun rights group or Second Amendment advocacy group that they wanted to be a part of. One that no offense to present company, but one that didn't just seem like it was represented or included, old conservative white guys.
Yeah.
But was included younger guys, young folks who were younger, right. Included a more diverse population, included people who weren't necessarily Republican. A lot of our members are, they're immigrants who came to this country from places that didn't have Second Amendment rights. So now that they're here,
one of the reasons they're here.
One of the reasons they're here. Now that they have those liberties, they wanna keep them, and they know a tyrannical government when they see it.
Yeah.
And also, though, one that reached out beyond, didn't just use the typical methods to advocate, but actually utilized digital communications and new media and social media in order to get people active in the political process.
Right.
And we've been really aggressive in doing that, and have built a following in the state of California of over 250,000.
Wow.
And when we put on a fire mission going after a particular piece of legislation, members know it, and it has an impact. And that's kind of the gun rights group that we wanted to be a part of.
Right.
So we figured rather than wait for existing gun groups to be that, we'll create one.
And I'll tell you what I'm impressed by when I see a lobbyist firm, a legislative group. You guys are a 501c. This is a nonprofit organization. This is not, we're doing this, but you're not a guy sticking $100,000 in your pocket every year, flying a jet back and forth to the Capitol.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah. It's an honorable thing you guys do as a 501c.
Well, exactly. Everything we do, we don't have big, huge donors. We don't have a Michael Bloomberg on our side.
Yeah.
We don't have George Soros.
Right.
Everything comes from individual donations, comes from what we're able to raise online.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, the membership is continuing to grow, and I love what I see on there. Join the resistance. Stand tall for the Constitution. That's just
exactly
that harks of 1776.
Well, and it talks a little bit about we are primarily Second Amendment advocacy, but we believe in advocating for the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, because we also believe that those Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself is what directs, it tells the government, the federal government, how it's to operate, and then the Bill of Rights places restrictions on that government, tells them what they can't do.
Yeah.
And all of them are important, and we're sick and tired of people treating the Second Amendment like a second-class right.
We talk about it here all the time. We get it from our friends up at Georgia Carry, and they say, don't be a Second Amendment but. Then that's the guy that's, it's a play on words, but I support the Second Amendment but, which to me sounds like, listen, I like the Constitution, but not the 13th Amendment, or not the First. I like the First Amendment, but, not for Jews. It just sounds that ridiculous when we hear, I support the Second Amendment, but You alluded to, or you mentioned George Soros and Michael Bloomberg. What are they doing in your state right now?
Well, what they've done in California is what they're also doing in other states. Is the first thing they're doing is they're hiring PR firms, And what these PR firms are doing is they're working with media in order to lay the groundwork. They're doing poll testing. They're looking and saying, okay, what are the issues, the anti-Second Amendment issues that we can get approved in this particular state?
Right.
And then they're working with media in order to drive a narrative. Then they're coming in and they're spending a lot of campaign cash. And that campaign cash isn't necessarily going to beat pro-Second Amendment candidates,
right,
because they generally come from pro-Second Amendment areas.
Yeah.
They're going after those candidates for whom it's really not a big issue. It's not a priority for them. And they're replacing them with rabid anti-Second Amendment candidates, anti-civil rights candidates,
right,
as well as putting money in the pockets for some of the leaders for whom it might not be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be a priority. And then they're pushing through the legislation, and they're being so successful, they're getting legislators to ignore every single rule of the process and their own laws and rules, gutting and amending bills, which in California is a process where they take out all the language that was in a bill and they put in new language because it's further along in the process, and then they just pass it through at the very end.
We talked about this getting ready for the show. They're ignoring the rules and the procedures there. I mean, how is this able to work its way through with not following the rules of order?
Well, because majority rules. The only rule that really matters is the rule of majority plus one.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
they figure on each of the committees,
mm-hmm.
they double stack it, so they make sure that they have super majorities on every one of the committees.
Right.
They don't quite have a super majority in both houses of the legislature, but they have enough votes where they just say, well, I'll give you an example. Like with the gut and amend process, there's this issue of what's called germaneness, meaning that if you amend a bill, what you amend into it has to be germane to the topic of the bill.
Right.
So guess how germaneness is determined? The chair basically says, it's germane. Now, you can challenge the ruling of the chair.
Right.
And guess what? Because of the rule of majority plus one, you're going to lose. And that's we had a global warming bill turned into an ammunition registry bill.
Well, bullets get hot when you shoot them, and global warming, and or barrel warming. I could see the tie in there for the chair. When you want to break the law.
Most legislators' mouths.
Yeah.
And yet we are not banning or registering them.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Probably more hot gas coming out of them than my rifle.
Yep, absolutely. That's probably why you got all them fires out there, because they just keep putting all that hot air out. What's your cooperation like with the law enforcement out there? How are you guys seeing with them? I know Lieutenant Bill's curious about that. He's giving me the. Can I ask? And
I'm going to be frank with you. First of all, when you talk with rank and file law enforcement in California, they support the individual right to keep and bear arms for everyday citizens.
Right.
Now the challenge is that the unions that represent them in the state legislature and some of the departments, the city police chiefs and city police departments, and a handful of the sheriffs. The sheriffs are usually pretty good, but a majority of those other folks, they come and they either are silent on the issue. In some cases, like in micro-stamping, which has basically created a ban on new semi-automatic handguns in the state of California, they supported it.
Right.
And then this is the worst part. So then sometimes they'll come and they'll say, well, we oppose this bill for these reasons, but if you exempt our folks,
right,
well, then, you can, we'll be okay. We'll remove our opposition.
Right.
It's like saying, well, we believe in the right to keep and bear arms, but if you let us keep our rights, you can take theirs.
That's right.
And there it is again.
Yep.
I believe in the Second Amendment, but
yep, exactly right.
And it's sad to see that you see where police unions are not advocating for their members; they're advocating for a political stance, and that's not what their purpose is.
Exactly. And we spend a lot of time really kind of trying to communicate that to rank and file law enforcement. I'm telling you, when they hear it, they get upset. So, and it's hard because you want to let them know, look, we support you. We support the work that you do. And we know that you support us and you support an individual's right to keep and bear arms. But you need to say something to your union bosses because they're not exactly saying the same exact thing, as well as those police chiefs that hire you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Craig, you see what's going on there with Bluebird and Soros. She told us, and that's expanding. That's not just California.
Oregon ceasefire and Washington ceasefire, which are two anti-Second Amendment groups in those respective states have already launched and talked about their desire to create a West Coast wall of gun control.
Right.
Their desire is to do the same exact thing they've done in California. They've already spent the money in Oregon. They got universal background checks, and they're going after all of these other things. The governor of Oregon has already stated that's going to be introduced, and our goal is to be there fighting in the Oregon State Legislature, and if necessary in the Washington State Legislature, in order to keep those things from happening. And the great thing is, in those two states, we actually have a shot at winning.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's great that it's not just California issues you're worried about. You're over there, and like you said, you're worried about the wall, the wall against the West Coast. Greg, how can people find out more about what you guys do? How can they get a hold of you?
You can find us either on YouTube or on Facebook at Gun Policy. So YouTube.com/Gun Policy, or Facebook.com/Gun Policy, or you can just find us at our website at firearmspolicy.org.
Yeah, it's great. I went on there at firearmspolicy.org, was able to take a look. It directed me to the YouTube channel. It directed me to Facebook. So it's a great organization. Get involved, folks. You heard us say it. This 501c. It's a nonprofit organization. They need your help to take care of these things. Craig, thank you for joining us. We hope to have you back on the program soon. We're hoping you're our link to California. We want to help any way we can. So again, thank you for coming on the program.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, you're listening to Arms Room Radio, coming to you live from the Mobile Keltec Studios at the Gun Right Policy Conference in Tampa. We'll see you after the break.
If you like these updates, please share them with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel.